Hello, and welcome to Talk Art. I'm Sally Rain, and I'll be your host as we delve into the world of the artist and the art that's all around us. Talk Art is sponsored by the Silicon Valley Open Studios. During the first 3 weekends in May, hundreds of local artists open our studios to the public. For more information, you can go to the website svos.org. Our guest for Talk Art is Eric St. George's. He is a sculptor who is interested in showing the movement and expressing the energy of his models. And he is here to discuss the lost wax process that he uses in casting his bronzes. So welcome, Eric.
Thank you. I'm very happy to be here.
Well, excellent. So you have some very beautiful, interesting work. Tell us a little bit about your background and how you got involved in sculpting.
So actually my background is engineering, and then after my engineering studies I was interested in drawing, and I went to an art school in Paris.
Oh.
But then I met a sculptor and I spent a few months with him, and that's really where I learned how to sculpt. And but then I didn't think I could have an art career, and went back to engineering. Right. And then only a few years ago I went back to art full time.
So sculpting is, all of these sculptures are new for you. About
Yes.
How many years have you been sculpting?
Full time, 3 years.
3 years,
Yes.
Excellent.
Yes.
So tell us about your medium. What is your favorite?
So my favorite medium is clay. And then after that, when I like the piece, I cast it in bronze.
Bronze.
Yes.
Okay, so let's take a look at a few of your images that you brought and talk about some of your sculptures.
Okay. So this one, Becky is sitting, this one is done from life, like many of my sculptures. And I often give the name of the model to my pieces. And this one, I used a red clay, which is I like to work with.
It's beautiful. It's very realistic looking.
This one, Emily, that's a different kind of clay. It's a very interesting clay because when I work it, it's brown. And when I fire it, it becomes this beautiful black.
Wow, look at that.
So this one, Pearl, and the three pictures that I'm going to show here are showing a little bit of the process I go through when I do my sculpture. This one is the first pose, very figurative, like a study. And from that same pose, I did a second one, which is this one, where I kind of start to abstract the piece. I don't have the arms anymore. I focus on really the movement and the pose, and keeping the most interesting for me.
Is this still clay, this part?
This one is still clay, yes.
Okay, so you're working with clay first.
Yes, yes. And then that's from the same pose with still in front of the model, I started to really abstract it and remove all the features in that case. And that's the third iteration. And out of this one, I made a bronze because I like that one.
So that is still the clay piece?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Now this is interesting. Tell me about the drawings.
So this one is a drawing. I like to do very quick drawings. This one is a 2-minute drawing from life. And in that particular case, I took that drawing and used it to create another piece of sculpture, which is this one.
Oh, interesting. So that
yes.
started as the drawing.
Yes, this one started as a drawing, and then I went back to my studio, and instead of having a model in front of me, I was just kind of inspired by the drawing.
Beautiful.
That's another case where this drawing also was done in front of the model. Again, I like to draw very fast. I like to start with charcoal and watercolor. And very rarely I touch the drawing when I'm back home.
So this is more like a gesture drawing almost.
Very gestural, and from that particular drawing I made a another sculpture, but this one carved it in stone.
Oh, beautiful.
This is an alabaster stone, which is a pretty soft stone, very beautiful to carve.
So you carve and you cast bronze and you use clay?
Yes.
Excellent. Beautiful.
So this one is the biggest bronze I've made so far. This one is 4 feet tall. It's 105 pounds.
Wow.
Because it was bigger than what we could cast in one piece, I had to cast it in 4 pieces and then weld them together.
Is it solid?
No, no, no,
Oh.
that would be
I was going to say.
that would be very, very heavy. This one, 105 pounds, and it's hollow. Yes,
Hollow, okay.
yes.
That's what I thought.
And so that was my first big challenge in making bronze. So this one is the piece that I'm going to use to demonstrate the bronze process. This one is called Ali. That's the name of the model who posed for that clay. And this one is the clay, and I'm going to, because I liked it, I cast it in bronze, and I'm going to show you the process.
Yeah, well, let's go to your demo now and take a look at what you have.
So I don't have the clay with me today, so to illustrate that, I'm going to use this one, which is the same as the clay. So the first thing that you need to do is to make a mold. And the mold is done in several pieces. So I would make the mold. I would put my piece like this, and I would create a mold, a flexible part of the mold, which will go like this.
What is that made out of?
This is rubber.
Rubber.
Yes. And because it's flexible, I need to make a harder part to hold it in place.
And is that plaster?
And this is plaster. So when I do one side, of course, that takes a little bit of more time than what I'm doing here, because I need to do the rubber in several layers, brushing the rubber on the piece.
So you paint it on.
So in that case, yes, there's other method to do that. If I use silicone, I can pour the silicone. In that case, this is a brush-on process. So I do the second side, and then I do the what we call the mother mold here, and then I have my mold here. So for the rest of the demonstration, once the mold is done, then you remove the mold. So that's exactly what we would do with the piece. So this is my original piece.
Okay.
Then I can put back my mold together.
Is your original piece usually clay?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. Sometimes it's the clay before being fired, but most of the time I fire the piece and I make the mold around it. So I have my mold here that I can hold together, and that's where I use the mold, pouring some liquid wax in the mold.
Oh.
And then if I want my bronze to be hollow, I have to just move the wax in there and pour the rest so that there's only one layer of wax in the mold. So when this is done, I open my mold, and then this is the wax that is created like this. So you see it's very light. It's much lighter than the bronze.
Right.
And in that case, it is hollow. For small pieces, I would have it solid.
Right.
That would be simpler. But in a piece like this, in bronze, it's already 20 pounds. If it was solid, it would be very, very
Right.
heavy, besides some other technical issues. So once I have that wax, what I need to do is create what we call a cup and a gating, so that I can bring the bronze into that piece. Because imagine that I want to cast that in bronze, I would need to bring the bronze in there. So I need to make a funnel. Basically, that's that cup here, and I connect that cup with gates. And this is a picture that we're going to show you right now.
So that's how the bronze gets into the edges.
Yes, because yes, exactly. That's we pour the bronze into the cup here, and through the gates which connect the cup to the wax, the bronze can flow.
Well, let's take a look at the images that you have and some videos about your process that you took in the studio.
Yes, so this is the piece that I showed you here with the cup and the gate connected. So once I have this piece, I take that piece and I dip it into a slurry, which is here. So this is the piece. Once I dip it in the slurry, which is a binder that I mix with a silica, and I do that in several layers, about 10 layers, and that becomes very hard, and it can also sustain the temperature of the bronze. So once I have that,
but that does not melt the wax.
The wax is in there.
In there, okay.
So the next step is to remove the wax and melt the wax from there. So in order to do that, I bring it to. So this is the wax, which we can see at the bottom of the slurry, of the piece with the slurry. So that I put that in a furnace to melt the wax. This is the furnace that we use to melt the wax. It's a gas furnace, and we bring that piece that we have here. The temperature goes up to 16 Fahrenheit, and melt the wax here. And I have a video to show you how that works.
So inside there is your sculpture? So
yes, and this is the furnace here, and this is a piece being burned out. And so the temperature is moving up, and the wax is melted and is poured underneath the furnace. So once the piece, the slurry, the ceramic shell, we call that a ceramic shell, has been burned out and heated, it becomes white and it becomes very hard. And it's hollow now because there's no more wax in there.
Right.
And that's what we're going to use to pour the bronze.
Okay, so the wax is where the bronze is going.
Exactly.
Okay.
So this is the bottom of the shell, and you can see the shape of the cup, and you can see the holes, which are the gates, bringing the bronze into the piece.
And the gates are those red pipes that you showed.
Yes.
Okay.
So before we can pour the bronze, we have to melt the bronze, and this is the other furnace that we use to melt the bronze. The bronze melts start to melt at 1800 degrees, and then typically we pour around 2100 degrees.
Wow.
So here the bronze is melted.
Look at all the equipment that you need.
Yes, it's very hot. I burned my hair several times there. So here we are removing the scories, the slag that is coming to the top of the melted bronze. Then we take the crucible out and move it. We have a crane because it's pretty heavy.
Oh, yeah.
And you don't want to get close to it.
No.
And we start to pour into the shell, which is put upside down like this.
So your sculptures are in there upside down. It's going along the edges where the wax was. What are you wearing?
Oh, we wear this, first the gloves.
Yes.
And the helmet, because it's very, very hot, and you cannot look at this without being very burned if you don't have that. And then this is a tradition. Once we have poured the bronze, we just throw in a penny and the
Good.
penny is burning. It's burning with this green light, and that's the penny for the god of bronze.
Ah, okay.
So that's the little yellowish spot dot that you see on the bronze. So the next step is to break the shell.
Oh,
The shell is broken every time. So that the whole process that I showed you is called the lost wax process, because every time we do that, we lose the wax and we lose the mold. So we have to start over with the initial mold.
Reproductions are starting from the beginning, from
Yes.
the original clay piece. All right.
No, from the mold that we made
From the first mold.
From
okay.
the first mold. So here we breaking the shell and using hammer and some power tools sometimes. And then we cut off the gates. And sometimes we have to do, there are some defects, so I have to do, in that case, I had to do some welding on the piece. So I used some TIG welder, and then we have some grinding to do. That's what is called the chasing.
Mm-hmm.
So once the piece, the gates have been cut off, the cup has been cut off, and the chasing has been made, which consists in making all the traces of the gates disappear by trying to reproduce the texture of the piece where we had some welding or the rest of the gates. We have that piece that we sandblast to remove all the little pieces of shell which might stay in there, and to have something which is ready to be to get the patina. So what is interesting in that case is that the bronze get oxidized very quickly. This is the same piece as the previous picture, just a couple of hours after the sandblasting, and you can see the color change appearing very quickly.
What causes that?
The humidity, and it's like the bronze is getting rusted.
Oh, interesting.
But that goes so fast that sometimes it's really surprising. So the next step after that is the patina. And patina is a process, a chemical process, which oxidizes the surface of the bronze. And depending upon the chemical that we use, we're going to have different colors. So this is the video of the patina that I did on this piece. So the first thing I do is heating the piece and then spraying some chemicals, in that case some chemicals which is titanium oxide, and which create an underlayer white. And then I can spray another chemical here, the ferric nitrate, which is going to create this yellow-orange color.
And that's done heating the bronze?
Yes, and here you can see the vapor of the liquid being vaporized when touching the bronze. So that's the final piece, and that's the piece which is there.
And you can do more than just bronze, right?
So one possibility also, you can use the same process to cast aluminum, which is the case with that piece. That's the same piece in aluminum. But it's exactly the same process.
Same process.
Yes.
Heating the aluminum, pouring it.
Yes, except the aluminum is poured at a lower temperature.
Oh, okay. Can you use other metals as well?
Yeah, I can do that in iron, but iron is using a much higher temperature, so it's not as easy.
Okay, so that's one process you have. You have a much more complicated process that involves this beautiful sculpture here. So tell us a little bit about the sculpture, and then we can see how it's created.
So this sculpture, it came from a piece that I had done in clay initially, and then I wanted to create a story around that clay, so I took that piece and added this sphere around the piece, and then making it in bronze was much more complicated because it's not as simple as the one I showed you, and the gating is more complicated. The mold is much more complicated.
Well, let's take a look at those images that you took pictures of the process. So
yes.
Let's see those, and we can talk a little bit about that.
So when you look at that, that's
Wow.
the whole gating of the piece, which is much more involved than the gating of the previous piece that I showed here.
So the bronze flows through all of those little tubes
Yes,
into it.
one of the
Interesting.
things that you want to make sure is that there is a nice flow of the bronze which can reach all the parts of the piece before it freezes and solidifies. So you have to calculate that and to make sure that the gates are going to bring the bronze nicely. But if you put too much gates, that's a lot of work to cut them off.
Right. Smooth them out, make the
Yes.
texture the same.
Yes. And so that's the piece which is dip into the slurry to get the ceramic shell. So on that piece was just enough, just small enough to get in my furnace.
Okay,
And
good.
so I had to practice 10 or 20 times to how to put in the furnace and take it back before I do that with the furnace at high temperature.
Right,
Because I don't want to spend more than 5 seconds doing that. It's too hot.
Interesting.
And so that's the final piece here that after I did the patina, in that case a blue patina using actually this is a cold patina using ammonia, which is just a house ammonia. And that patina takes much more time to get to that color. It takes a 3 or 4 days dipped into in a container with ammonia vapors.
Well, that's beautiful. Very nice work. So you have a lot of very abstract work, which is really interesting. And in the JPEG images, they look huge. I thought they were giant sculptures, and some of them are quite small and lovely.
Yes. So making a big bronze is difficult. Takes time, a lot of work. So a small bronze allows me to get my ideas quickly, and yeah, it's the size I'm comfortable with, between this and maybe 20 inches. Yes.
So tell us where people can see your art. You have some upcoming shows, so why don't you tell us about?
Okay, so I have a
them?
show coming up at the San Mateo City Hall.
Oh, nice.
That I'm going to set up tomorrow.
Tomorrow.
And I have also another show in San Francisco, which is more about drawing, because with 4 other artists, we're going to draw live in front of the public.
Oh,
And the public will be able to buy the drawings on the spot.
Oh, nice. So are there sculptures going to be there as well?
So I will have a few sculptures exhibited here. There's a show starting on actually this weekend until the end of April.
Okay.
And an opening this coming Saturday.
So San Mateo City Hall. Tell us a little bit about that show.
Oh, that will be, I will have I think 15 or 20 sculptures there. They have a regular rotating exhibit where they selection, they choose some artists. There is a call for entry, and the artists have their work shown there for a month, and then it goes also to the library. So I have 1 month at the City Hall and 1 month at the library.
So is it a solo show? Or
It's a solo show.
Solo show.
It's
so
not. It's not
nice.
big. It's two big cases.
Well, still, that's nice, though.
But yes.
It's nice when people can come and see your work in a public space like that.
Yes.
So we have a couple more minutes. So these beautiful little pieces, when you're with the model, how do you quickly come up with these ideas?
So the first thing we do is working with the model to have a nice, interesting pose. I like to have some dynamics and some nice movement, and then I start to work with the clay, and my favorite tool is actually just a simple kitchen knife.
Kitchen knife.
Yes, that's my favorite because it allows me to go very quickly and cut. And
So these smooth lines, all of that. Well, and this one.
yes, same thing here. And on this one, I leave the traces of the teeth of the knife. That gives us
I see that on
some
purpose.
on purpose. That leaves the texture of the tool, and I like to leave that here rather than trying to make something very realistic and perfect from the anatomy point of view.
So you're more interested in the abstract. So tell
Yes.
us a little bit about that one. There's no arms, no head. What?
That one I did
Inspired
that very
you?
quickly. It took me maybe 10 minutes to do that one. At the end of the pose, I took a block of clay and I wanted just to have a few cuts in there. And you can see here that it's really cut in a few places, and that was it. I didn't want anything else.
Well, it's beautiful, and it definitely looks like you've caught them in motion, like they're just about ready to move on to the next space. So they're beautiful. Well, thank you very much for being here on Talk Art. This has been a wonderful show.
Oh, that was a great pleasure to be here.
Yeah, well, thank you for letting us know about the bronze process, lost wax. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Sally.